Hi there, my name is Ayala Connell and I'm a gluten-free and paleo chef, and this is an episode of Simply Paleo with me. Today we are going to be making blueberry banana muffins using my mix. My mix is called Simply Paleo Muffin and Cupcake Baking Mix, and it's a great versatile mix that sort of gives you kind of a clean slate to create anything that you'd like to create in the cake realm. So it makes fantastic muffins of all different types of flavors. It can make vanilla cupcakes, you can add a little bit of cocoa powder and it'll make chocolate cupcakes, and it can also make one layer of a cake. So if you're wanting to make a double layer cake, you'd get a second bag and just repeat the recipe. But essentially what's great about it is that in this bag is all of the dry ingredients that you need for the recipe. And then on the back of the bag, there's the recipe itself that talks about all the liquid ingredients and of course a specific flavor profile that you want to add in at the end. Like if it's blueberry muffins, you would fold in the blueberries and so on and so forth. But it's fantastic, and you know, in the paleo realm, which is such a healthy lifestyle that we tend to lead, most baking mixes are made out of nut flours, and there's obviously a lot of wonderful beneficial nutrients that come from nuts. Most of them are made typically from almonds and coconuts, but there's obviously a lot of people out there that are sensitive to nuts, and there's certainly some nut sensitivities in my family. So as the explorer in the kitchen that I am, I of course spent years trying to come up with a recipe that would give the right delicate texture and the right burst of flavor and so on and so forth without the nuts. But what you find when you bake with almond flour is it definitely makes products that are more dense, and certainly in the muffin world, very, very dense. So this is a different type of recipe entirely, and it is fantastically light and fantastically moist and just so delicious. And it's made with things like cassava flour and arrowroot and ground flax seeds and all kinds of healthy and wonderfully nutritional ingredients. So I recommend that you try it, and we're going to show you how to do it. If you're interested, if you're hardcore like me and you love to use alternative flours and you want to source all the ingredients yourselves, the recipe is included on this post. So you can follow that, or you could just use the mix for the dry ingredients and follow the recipe for the rest of the steps. So let's get started. So I am going to be doing a couple of tastings coming up soon, and I find that the easiest thing to do for these tastings at these stores that carry my Simply Paleo Baking Mix is to have different variety flavored muffins, and that way I just quarter them and people can take a good solid chunk of a bite and hopefully buy a bag, and then they've also gotten a sense of the texture, the taste, and how wonderfully light the muffin is. So, in essence for that, I just finished a blog post Facebook Live video on how to make apple cinnamon muffins, and today we're going to do, on this particular video, banana blueberry. So let's get going. So the first step is to take the dry mix. So we've got everything from this bag that's poured in, and I give it a nice little twirl with a whisk to make sure that it's well incorporated. Or if you're doing it with the individual ingredients, same thing, all the dry goes into the bowl first, mix it up nice and smooth, and then set it aside. And then what we're going to do is the liquid ingredients in a separate bowl. So we've got our bowl here, and first thing we put in are eggs. So we're going to put in 2 eggs. Now, if you are trying to do an egg-free diet, if you're trying to get started on the autoimmune paleo protocol, which there are some seeds in the batter, there is some ground flax seeds. So if you're weaning off or weaning into the AIP, then it's fine. But if you're right in the center of it, then obviously this wouldn't be the right product for you. But the eggs, if you're wanting to substitute them, there's a lot of different ways to substitute eggs. The way I find is the easiest, and certainly one of the more nutritious versions, is to use chia seeds. So if you take 1 tablespoon of chia seeds and 3 tablespoons of water, that is equivalent to 1 egg. So this recipe calls for 2 eggs. So you're going to take 2 tablespoons of chia seeds and 6 tablespoons of water in a little bowl. Give it a nice little mix with a little spoon, and then set it aside on the counter for about 10 or 15 minutes, and it'll get nice and gelatinous. It can be the first thing that you do with this recipe, and it'll be essentially gelatinous like the eggs that would be in this recipe. And then you can just add it into the liquid mix just like you would the eggs. Now the other thing to say is I preheated the oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, and I inserted baking cups into my muffin tin, or you can also grease it if that's your preference. I love the baking cups because of course it makes cleanup so much easier, but also thinking about all the snacks that I like to pack for my kids' lunches or for myself, that sort of thing, it's easier to grab and go. So we've got our eggs in here. And then what we're going to do is take a half a cup of olive oil. Now, I use extra virgin olive oil, but when I'm baking, I tend to use not a robust, very expensive version. Just make sure it's a reputable company so you know that it's pure olive oil. And I'm going to use a half a cup, and then it doesn't really impart a strong olive oil flavor. It just gives us the nice, healthy fats in the muffins. Oh, you can hear my phone ringing. That's great. But we're going to ignore it because it's probably telemarketing. And then we're going to do a half a cup of milk. Now, there's a lot of different types of milk substitutes. And in the paleo lifestyle, we do avoid dairy. I like to use hemp milk because, as I said before, I have some nut sensitivities in my family. And so using nut milks are not a great option for our family, but for your family, it might be the perfect option because nut milks have a lot of nutrition to them and they're nice and thick like hemp milk. Or you can use coconut milk, which is a good option as well. And then I'm going to use maple syrup. You can use honey as well if that's what you have readily available at home. It makes the muffins a little bit darker, but still very delicious. A slight different change in flavor, but not much. So we're going to use a half a cup of maple syrup. I like using this for baking because it's a little easier. It just flows out of the measuring cup a little bit easier, a little less sticky. So we're going to do that. And I tend to do the maple syrup as one of the last things because the olive oil has coated the measuring cup, so it's easier to get all the ingredients out of it. And then we're going to do about 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. So, okay. And then the last liquid ingredient that we're going to use is a mashed banana. Now, you have a couple of options here. You can use a mashed banana, or you can use about 1/3 of a cup of applesauce. Now just think about the flavor profile that you're making and what would suit the best, or use what you have readily available in your kitchen. And typically a small mashed banana is best. So you can see I'm kind of very liberally taking off the ends to create a small banana. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use a fork. And I'm literally, let's get this out of the way so you can see what I'm doing. I'm just mashing it. You can see this is a pretty soft banana. It was sort of mottled with black on it. And so it kind of shows you that it's pretty ripe. It's not overripe, but it's definitely soft. If it's too ripe, it's going to leave like sort of if it's too unripe, it's going to leave an unripe banana kind of texture and flavor in your mouth. So it's good to have it be a little bit soft. And of course, it makes it easier to create that sort of banana paste that we're going for. You don't have to leave it too chunky, but you can. It kind of depends on how you like your muffins. Having it a little bit chunky, then you get the little chunks of banana, or you can just have the flavor if you get it nice and smooth. So we're going to get our liquid mix back here, and we're going to take our mashed banana, and we're going to put it right in there. And I find that bananas and blueberries together such a wonderful flavor profile, really delicious. But for some people, they don't love banana, so then you can just do blueberry and add in the applesauce instead, because it doesn't impart a strong apple flavor in the muffin when it's baked. But you do need something of that type of fruit consistency to finish off the batter to get the right type of integrity and texture, that lightness at the end. So we're just mixing it up with a whisk and making sure that we get it nice and smooth and incorporated. And then we're going to take our dry mix. We're going to take our liquid and pour it into the dry. All right. And then, we're going to just mix it up and get everything incorporated. Certainly you could put the dry into the liquid, but the dry is in the bigger bowl, and I find it doesn't matter so much. You're just going to mix away until everything's nice and incorporated. You don't want to have any big chunks of flour in here because, of course, that would make a very off-putting taste for a muffin because you're taking a big bite and there's just a big chunk of this granular stuff. But it should be relatively smooth. You'll definitely see some chunks from the banana pieces in here, and certainly there'll be some texture to the batter because of the ground flax seeds. I like to use golden flax seeds because it doesn't impart a strong color to the batter, but again, it doesn't matter so much. That's what's in the actual baking mix, though. So as I said, we're doing tastings. So this Saturday, I'm actually at the Willimantic Food Co-op. I love food co-ops because they're just so gracious and friendly and warm, and they're welcoming. And so to be able to do a tasting there with people that are probably more familiar with this sort of a lifestyle, I'll get less of that feeling of people walking by trying not to make eye contact with me as I'm sitting there saying, would you like to try a gluten-free paleo muffin? They're delicious. I made them myself. And then that's always a nice feeling. The last tasting I did was at a store in Manchester, Connecticut, Highland Park Market. And they're so lovely there. The staff is wonderful. The store is just so beautiful. It's got a lot of specialty products. And they carry my mixes there as well. But when I was there, it was just such a lesson in humility. I found that, a lot of people were so kind and sweet and stopped by and tried the muffins, and a bunch of people bought the bags, which was obviously very validating for me. But there was equally a lot of people that walked by and were like, I don't see this woman. And ever since then, it's been such a great lesson for me. Anytime I see someone that's doing a tasting in any type of store, even if it's something I can't eat, I'm still going to come up there and put my arm and say, hey, what you got going on over here? And just try to be friendly and kind. And, it's just a great thing to do. It's a good lesson for me. At any rate, so here we have the batter, and it's definitely smooth and lightly colored. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to take our blueberries. Let's just put the whisk away, and our spatula, because now instead of mixing with more aggressive sort of gross motor movements, we're going to fold in the blueberries. And there's a couple of reasons for that. A lot of times the ingredients that you're putting in as sort of the flavor profile are very delicate, so you don't want to ruin the integrity of that. In the last muffins that I just did, which we're going to actually have as part of our taste testing at the end of this video, they were apple cinnamon muffins. They were so beautiful and delicious, but the apples were sauteed and they still had their structure, but they were soft. And so I didn't want to ruin them and mush them into kind of an applesauce. It's really about delicately folding it in. With the blueberries, these are frozen wild blueberries, so they're very little, which is fantastic for the muffins because it doesn't make it too, there's not too many points that are so large and robust and mushy that there's sort of no texture to the muffin itself. But if you mix it too much, it creates this blue color to the batter, and then you have this entirely blue muffin, which is fine if you want sort of a Smurf theme for a party. But mostly, we want it just to be like some light blue swirls. So we're going to put them in. I like to do it when they're not thawed yet, because then, of course, more of the same of what we're talking about. It's going to create a blue swirl, but not necessarily a blue muffin. So I'm just going to fold them in, and then that's that. So you can see this beautiful batter that's got the blueberries mixed in. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take our muffin tin that has the baking cups inserted, or a greased muffin tin if that's your preference, and we're going to place it right here. I'm going to move some things off of here so we have room. And then what I'm going to use is an ice cream scooper. And I love to do this because it helps me to create sort of more proportioned amounts in each of the baking cups. And if I fill this up pretty well to robust, I can get about 12 muffins out of this batter. And there'll be a little bit extra, which then I can kind of proportion over the ones that I might have put a little bit less in. You want to fill the muffin cups about 3/4 of the way full, and then they'll rise a little bit over the paper when it's done and make it really pretty to look at. So we're going to get our scooper and get our bowl in a position that's going to be easy, and then we're just going to take our scooper and fit it into the muffin cups. Now it's okay if you make a mess and get a little bit on the muffin tin itself, it doesn't matter. All of it comes off pretty easily. The end product is the most important. You're going to have these delicious muffins, whether you get a little batter on the muffin tin or not. I say this to my kids all the time. And there we go. We're going to fill this up. And then, as I said, I preheated the oven to 350 degrees. You're going to bake the muffins for about 24, 25 minutes. It so depends on the type of oven you have. You might have convection, which is great because then the fan kind of circulates the air and you get a more even baking. If you don't, that's fine too. But ultimately what it means is that the amount of time it takes for you to bake your muffins in your oven, it might be a little different than mine by a couple of minutes. So after 24 or 25 minutes, you can take them out and check them out. They should be lightly browned on top, and then you can do the toothpick test, where you take a toothpick or some type of sharp needle type of instrument and put it into the top of sort of the tallest muffin right in the middle, all the way through, and pull it out gently. And if it comes out free of any kind of batter, and it's just nice and dry, then you know that they're ready. And if not, you put them in for another couple of minutes. You don't want to overcook them. It's not that they make terrible muffins that way, but it just dries them out a little bit. So they'll be delicious right away, but then they won't last as long. And this way, they last for a few days nice and moist if they're out at room temperature, you know, sort of lightly covered. So we've got our muffin batter in here, and we put it in for 24 to 25 minutes, and then when it's ready, we take it out and we let it cool in the tin for a little while. And then once it cools a little bit and it's not too hot to the touch, then you can take out the muffins and put them on a cooling rack, which is just like a metal rack that elevates it a little bit so that they can cool underneath as well. And then cool it on the cooling rack for a while until they're cool enough to touch. And then you can still eat them warm, or you can wait until they're fully cooled. That's fine, whatever your preference is. And then they will last at room temperature for, you know, a few days. I have a tasting tomorrow, and I made some muffins yesterday, and I'm making some today. I'm kind of, you know, taking my time because of all the muffins we're making for it. And they're still so delicious today. So, and they're great for snacks. So we're going to set this aside, and I'll put this in, and I realized there's a little blooper on this video. I left the muffins over there that are done, so keep listening to me. I'm going to get the muffins. They're just right over here, and they're ready for my taste testing that I'm going to be doing at the store tomorrow. So we're going to taste test a muffin here. All right, and this is one of my apple cinnamon muffins, so you can imagine this with blueberries and bananas, and it gives you a little bit of a sense of what it looks like. I like these parchment paper style unbleached baking cups because, first of all, they come off so easily. And second of all, of course, they're healthier for you because they're not, you know, they're unbleached. You can find them pretty much anywhere. So what we're going to do is just cut into it so you can see the texture. This, again, is a different flavor profile. This one is another muffin I'm bringing to the tasting. Has sauteed and chopped cinnamon apples, and then folded in with some cinnamon added into the dry mix. But it's a delicious muffin. So here you can see the texture. It would be the same texture for the blueberry and banana one. The difference is that you would have blueberries in here instead of the little apple chunks. But look at how moist it is. So we can take a little bite, and I will tell you how it tastes. Not that I haven't had these a lot. Oh my goodness. Super delicious. The texture of the muffin is so light and so moist. It's not dense at all. And then you've got the sweetness and the completely different texture of the fruit. So whether it was blueberries, in this case it's sauteed apples, it's sweetness, but it still has the structure of the fruit. It's so yummy. So I hope you guys make this. Whether you're hardcore and you're going to do all the alternative flours on your own and follow the recipe, more power to you. Or you can do the easier route, and you can grab a bag of the Simply Paleo Baking mix for muffin and cupcakes, and you can get these on my website under products, or you can buy them at some of the local independent retailers in and around Connecticut. They're at the Willimantic Food Co-op, Highland Park Market in Manchester, Connecticut, and also at the Cookshop Plus Gourmet Kitchen Store in West Hartford Center in Connecticut. If you're not local, just check out the website at simplypaleo.com and go to products, and you can buy your own bag there. And they're so easy to use, and remember the recipes on the back of the bag, and you're just limited by your own creativity, which means that you're limitless in your creativity. So I highly recommend that you try it, and as always, I'd love to hear from you from the Simply Paleo Kitchen. If you have any ideas, cravings, wish lists, you just can check me out on the blog at simplypaleo.com and send me a line of what you'd like me to make, and I can't wait for you to join me on the next Simply Paleo episode. Thanks so much.